In this lesson with the Dakota, I wanted to start teaching her to move her shoulders over. So, like you'd seen before, I was working on the hand target a bit a while back, and I want her to like target my hand with her shoulder. But first, I want to make sure that she's going to move her shoulders over in response to the target. So I'm presenting the target. She's following it right now with her nose. She's stepping over. There, she stepped over with her left front. Her shoulders moved over, and then I'm clicking and feeding. So right here, same thing. She's following that target with her nose, but I want her to know that target cue first so that I can ask with my hand and then follow it up with the target, and that my hand will replace the target. It'll be my hand target versus the handheld target in this case. So that's what I'm kind of working on here, because as you've seen before, she was really struggling with touching pretty much like on her neck and shoulders, like going after the hand target or targeting her neck and shoulders to my hand. So I'm just bringing in the handheld target and helping her out. Even though she's not touching her shoulders to the target, I am like getting those shoulders unlocked and moving and she's following them. So I'm not too worried about that because my handheld target or my hand target will just be a cue, and then I can go ahead and create the movement with my handheld target. So that's just what I'm doing here, is just presenting the target. She's following with her nose. Once she takes that step over with her shoulders, I'm clicking and then feeding. So right here, we're just going to click and feed for standing still and waiting for me, which again is very important. I'm going to say this in all my videos, but standing still and waiting is the most important behavior that you can possibly have. So reinforcing that quite often and then increasing the amount of time that she can give me that behavior is very important. Because like I was just doing a second ago, I need to be on my phone sometimes, I need to look at my phone. Um, I need to like stop and talk to somebody, get something. Like there's a lot of different scenarios where I need her to wait. It's just a good thing to have on their saddle as well. So, but um, we're going to continue just working with moving her shoulders over here and just having her follow that target. And she's pretty used to like following the target and having that. It's just she needs to connect it to my hand. So both sides here, this looks pretty good. Like I really don't need to do much more than this. I can probably start showing her my hand target because she's pretty solid on following the handheld target. She understands that really well. So again, we're just going to work on the standstill a little bit here and just let her hang out and eat her food. And then right here, I'm clicking and feeding for standing still. So just like 10-12 seconds of her staying still. And then I can start increasing that time. So again, I'm going to back up and then I'm going to ask her to follow that handheld target over, and she does that quite nicely. And she's already like been conditioned to touch the target. You've seen all those things already, so those are all important things to have working before you start doing this. That time she's like crossed her leg in front, that looked really nice. So we've got that movement down, so she's about ready to start with the hand target and then start adding the movement on here. So I just had her eat and take a little break with the bucket. I just cut out the part where she's eating because it's kind of boring. She's just eating out of the bucket. And then we're going to work on the stay here a little bit. So again, just like the other behaviors, you've seen her do the stay before. She's quite good at it. We're not using the mat anymore or like the stationary cone or target, but her cue is a touch on the forehead, and then I say whoa, and that's her verbal cue to stay there. And then right now, I'm just backing away from her. Like it's another level of difficulty when I turn my back to her. If I back away, I can watch her, and then it's not as confusing for her either because she doesn't get confused and think, oh, I'm supposed to follow me. Because obviously, when leading, my back's turned to her, and she's supposed to follow me. Um, so we're still at that point because I've been working on the stay like on and off. So she's not super consistent to the point where I can just turn my back and walk away right now. But we're going to get there. But I'm just going to work my way around, just doing a couple of steps of backing away from her. So here's my cue. I'm backing away. I'm going to click here and then come back. And I'm clicking when I'm right now I'm working on like 2 steps all the way around her, but I want her to not move her feet, and I would ideally like her head to be forward, to be facing forward. So like this is pretty perfect. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get food, but um, because some horses will. That was actually a very nice stay while I went to go get her bowl. Um, but some horses, even just watching you and turning their neck, they'll start like once you reinforce that, they might start to move their feet and come towards you. So you got to be careful of that. Um, and then I like to just kind of give her a little jackpot in the bowl and then we'll move on to something else. So it's a little bit more clear on where to change behaviors and start working on something else. So let her eat there, and then we're going to work on some cues from the ground that we're using during riding. So I want her to work on standing still and waiting here. So I'm clicking and reinforcing for her just standing still and waiting. And now I'm going to ask her to touch the target, and then I'm going to reinforce her for touching that on cue. And then I'm going to feed her back, and then I'm going to reinforce her again for standing still, and then again for touching the cone on my cue. Because she does kind of wander around while I'm riding her, and I just really want to make sure that those cues are really clear for her, that she knows she's supposed to stand still when I say whoa, she's supposed to touch the target when I ask her to touch or target. Um, and then she's supposed to back up when I ask her to back. So I want those like four cues to be very specific, and she knows them really well before I go and do a lot of writing. And right now they're kind of inconsistent, so the best place to teach them is on the ground. So again, I'm just reinforcing for her staying still and waiting, because I she does get a little bit not anxious, but she'll anticipate, and she'll go up to the stationary cone on her own. That's not bad, but I'd rather her wait for my cue. So I need to keep the standstill away from the cone, more reinforcing than going to the cone. And right now I'm just feeding her back because I wasn't working on the backup cue at that point. So I just put her reinforcement back to where I'd like her to be, and then just click and reinforce her for staying still. But you can do that, or you can also work on the backup cue. If like right now, I think I was just trying to focus on the standstill and the go forward. Um, and it's going to be easier if you do like one or two cues at a time versus three, four, five. So I think that's what my thought process was here. And then the one thing that I definitely would change about this is, and I've said this before, I need to be back at her shoulders because I'm still up here by her head. Like when I was giving her that go forward cue, like I pointed to the cone and asked her to target. I was in a different position. Obviously, the shoulder position is going to be different versus when I'm riding her, but it's as close as on her back I can get while I'm working on the ground. So I need to be back by her shoulder so she doesn't see me up by her head, because that's going to help with that confusion definitely. So I just kind of, well, I'll forget while I'm working with her, and my default position is standing by her head. I've been conditioned to just, that's where you work your horse and you lead your horse and you do all these things from up there. So I forget as well. But that's the one thing I would change and work on that. Again, I'm just reinforcing her for staying still, and she's being awesome. Really, I got to make the stand still like twice or three times as reinforcing. Like I'm rewarding that as two or three times as much as going to the target. So that she rather stay there than go to the target. It's definitely appealing for a lot of horses to go forward because going forward in itself is reinforcing. And then especially if they like to target objects, so that cone is also reinforcing. So it's kind of adding to the reinforcement value of going forward and touching the target. So I need to make sure that just staying still is even more reinforcing than that. So I need to click and feed her for staying still many more times than going forward and touching the target. So, and I like that last time she was really slow. Like she was like, okay, I'd rather kind of stand and wait because that's been more reinforcing for her right now. She went and did it on cue, but she wasn't as quick about it. So I do like that. And she's being awesome right here. And this is much better for me because I am by her shoulder too. But again, that time she was nice and slow. And I think another thing about feeding her back here that is going to be helpful is, even though I'm not working on necessarily a cue for the backup, I'm feeding her away from the cone. So that kind of gives the cone a little bit less value as well. So that's another thing that can help with that. So I think that was a good thing for her right at the time. So I'm just going to give her a jackpot and end the session.